Hey guys, I hope you're having a good week. It's been super bright and unseasonably warm where I live. I wanted to show you a really nice cactus. So, this is one that I've been meaning to talk about for a while, and it's one that I've seen a lot more in stores lately, and it's just a really good profuse grower. So this over here is Epiphyllum anguliger, also known as the Rickrack cactus, also known as the fishbone cactus, and the zigzag cactus. And I think that's because of its leaf shape. So this is just a really happy blooming cactus, and there's a couple of misconceptions about it that I just wanted to clear up. So being an epiphyllum, it's in the same genus as orchid cactus. It's also in the same genus as the Dutchman's pipe, which is Epiphyllum oxypetalum, which is a different plant. And it's also in the same family as the queen of the night cactus, which infamously only blooms one night, and that is the Selenis grandiflora. So this is a jungle cactus, and I just wanted to compare it to another one. So this over here is Epiphyllum, the orchid cactus. Thank you to my friend Bavjit that actually gifted me this. It's grown a lot. This is a really nice one, but this is a different plant. So notice how this one doesn't have the same rickracky kind of zigzag structure. It's a lot more flat, it's a lot more paddle-like, so that'll be a plant for a different day. So I just wanted to get that clear, because the carry is pretty similar, but it's slightly different. So Epiphyllum anguliger, it's native to the tropical Americas, anywhere from southern Mexico all the way down through to Colombia, Panama. I'm sure they have it in lots of parts of South America too, but it's more of a Central American, Guatemala, Costa Rica type of a plant. So it derives its name epiphyllum from the fact that it's an epiphyte, which means that it grows vegetatively on the tops of moss in kind of branch crotches on trees, and it grows with the benefit of stuff that's growing on other plants. It doesn't really anchor itself into the ground specifically. The natural blooming season for these guys is going to be kind of when it starts getting cool out, when the days start getting a little shorter. So where I live, November, December, even into January, February. Yeah, so it's just a really beautiful plant, and mine happens to be growing quite a lot right now. So it is technically edible. I've personally tried it before. I don't recommend it. It tastes kind of like rancid melons or kind of like mushy rotten cucumbers. It's kind of a hard flavor to distinguish. But yeah, it does actually produce these little fruits. They're also known as pears because they bear resemblance to the prickly pear or the opuntia. And those are born kind of on stalks right at the very end of these guys. So when these guys bloom, they bloom quite profusely. They like to be a little bit pot bound, so I don't recommend repotting them a whole lot. Your best friend with these guys is going to be good drainage, definitely good drainage. They don't like to sit in water. You'll get a little bit of rot on the base. Here, I'll show you here. So there's a tiny little bit of rot on the base here. That's because I overwatered it a couple months ago. So the new growth, when it starts, it tends to be a lot more prickly. Keep in mind it's not by any means like spiny. It's not like a painful plant to hold, but it does start with these little prickles and they fall off. And when they bloom, it's really interesting. So they have two methods of blooming. Either they will bloom right in the middle here. This is the node intersection, but I've also seen them bloom here. You're never going to get blooms down here. It's always going to be on the tips. Blooms are about yay long as far as the peduncle goes, and then the bloom itself can be quite sizable, and usually they come in different colors, magenta, kind of like a creamy apricot. Some of them come in more of an orangey peach color. This particular one is beautiful because it has petals that alternate between pink and white. The flowers are very showy. Most of them are fragrant, and they're very short-lived. They only live like 2 days or so. They usually bloom at night. One thing I will say is if I have this one outside all summer, they do benefit from being outside just because the lux reading of the natural light is a lot more intense than the lighting that one would have indoors, unless you have like skylight windows, for example. But if they start going a little bit red on you, that could be one of two things. If it's on the new growth like this, That could just be a variety difference. But if the whole entire thing starts becoming kind of like a brassy, rusty red color, it means that it's getting too much light. So you're going to want to put it in a shadier spot. So these guys here are jungle cacti. And they are true cactus, so they are in the Cactaceae family. But what I mean by jungle cacti is that they require a whole lot more water than other cacti, such as this cardon cactus right over there. One thing I will say is they do benefit from higher humidity, which is a little counterintuitive considering that it's a cactus. But if you can give this guy a relative humidity upwards of about 55-60%, it'll benefit from it. It'll grow a lot longer. These little branchlets here, by the way, they're actually technically a modified leaf. They can grow really quite long. You can get them down to 3.5, even 4 feet if you have this in a hanging basket. If you really want to coax blooms, give them a high phosphorus liquid feed fertilizer. I don't recommend granular fertilizers just because they don't tend to integrate with the soil very well. You can deadhead the flowers, but I don't think that it really adds to a profusion of flowers. They just kind of produce what they're going to produce, and then there's that. What else should I say about this guy? If they start turning yellow, almost always that's a sign of root rot. It means that you should repot it like ASAP because the roots can't get enough water because the sheaths of the roots have become slimy and moldy. Another thing I want to say is if you prune it, I don't know if you can see down here, I'll actually use my leg to kind of show you. If you prune it, it'll start growing all sorts of these little side shoots. They're very easy to propagate. I recommend propagating them in water and perlite. If you want to propagate them in sphagnum moss, they tend to rot. Another thing I want to say, if the base has this kind of woody structure here, this is literally just corking. It's just older material on the plant that just has aged. It's less photosynthetic. It's kind of like a tree producing bark. It's totally fine. Yeah, so they do really well. If you're planting them by cuttings, you can cut each one of these paddles, I guess you can call them, and then you can just shove them into one pot, which is what I've done here. And you can create your own beautiful cascading little canopy. Wonderful for sharing with friends, by the way. You know, I feel like I say this in all my videos, but like, I feel like I'm forgetting to say something, but, just a sec. Oh yeah, in theory the leaves are edible too. I wouldn't try them just because they're kind of gross. And yeah, so that's Epiphyllum anguliger. If you want them to continue blooming, definitely just be patient with this guy. Oh, geez, I have a wasp on me. Sorry about that. But yeah, so these guys aren't very temperamental. Definitely brighter light indoors. I don't think that they need very much shade. Please excuse the siren outside. I actually live pretty close to like where the ambulance comes out, the ambulance station, so we get a lot of sirens here. So this is just the other one that I wanted to say. They all have slightly different forms. If you notice that they're a little bit more triangular, that's literally just how mature it is. I don't know if you can see here. Slightly more mature growth will be more triangular. It'll form kind of a ridge if this decides to focus. There, I don't know if you can see with the two knobs over there. Yeah. Starting plant. I'm gonna show you guys when this guy does bloom, because I think it will bloom soon. It's going on its 3rd year. Very, very atypical for them to bloom in their 1st year. Yeah, so if you want it to be happy, remember lots of liquid feed fertilizer. Let it dry out a little bit in between waterings. You want to give it bright light, not scolding like super direct light, but like definitely bright light. They don't like being moved a whole lot, so I tend to accept the shock of moving it twice a year. So I'll move it in April. I'll move it outdoors. I know its favorite spot already. It's just right over there. It just kind of sits there and does well for me. And then I'll move it again in October when it starts getting a little cooler at night. The coolness at night actually does coax the blooms, so you don't want to take it in too early, but it's definitely not frost hardy. So that's my little intro video to Epiphyllum anguliger, Rickrack cactus, fishbone cactus. It's a very easy cactus. It grows well in companionship with other plants like kalanchoes. Um, African violets, I've seen them even in planters with these guys, and they do well because they have relatively similar needs. And yeah, I hope this was informative for you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for listening. Have a good one.